Hi everyone, it's Mr. Ferries. I'm creating this quick video to give you a reminder of how to cite sources using Chicago Turabian. That way you can check out the video anytime in case you forget or need extra help or instruction. Let me start by showing you what I have on my browser. First, I have a Google Doc. Remember, you should be writing your HIs all in Google Docs. I have Classroom here. Just a reminder, this is where I have some of the materials on here to help you with your historical investigation. Um, and I've pulled these three sources up, Manual for Writers, and two kind of cheat sheets from EasyBib. And the last thing I have pulled up here is the book that I'm going to be referencing to demonstrate how to cite sources using Chicago. The book is Founding Brothers by the historian Joseph Ellis, pretty well-known historian on colonial and revolutionary American history, and winner of the Pulitzer Prize, as you can see here. So let's go ahead and let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is give a title for this historical narrative that I'm creating. So we'll call this the famous American duel, right? And so this is going to be a little narrative about the duel between Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr. So let's say I start off with a sentence, and we'll say something like, one of the most famous events in American history was the duel between Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr. Okay, all right. So now, I start off with a general claim, but I'm going to go ahead and support this with evidence from, as I'm giving the narrative, from Ellis's book. So on page 27 in Ellis's book, there's an idea that I'm going to want to use and give credit to Ellis for. And one of the things that he says was that the the general public believed that Burr had actually murdered Alexander Hamilton, the way that the duel had been reported. So I'm not quoting him directly. I'm paraphrasing the idea. So I'm going to say something like, following the duel between Hamilton and Burr, much of the American public believed that Hamilton had been murdered by Burr. Okay, so period, end of sentence. The next thing that I'm going to want to do is go ahead and cite this. So for Google Docs, what you're going to do is you go up to Insert. You see the drop-down menu here. You go down to Footnote, and you're going to insert a footnote. And there you go. It does pretty much all of the work for you, or at least the formatting types of issues. So I have superscript 1. And at the footer of the page, which is why it's called footnotes, it'll create this little line for you, and number 1 for you to type in the footnote citation. Now, something else that I want to make sure is clear is that even though we're using footnotes, we still need to have a bibliography. So I suggest that once you know you're going to cite a source, it's a good idea to put that source in your bibliography. Okay, and this will help clear up what needs to go where. So for this book, I'm going to take a look at the EasyBib template here. I think this is the good place to start, and if you have any questions, then it's better to go for the more comprehensive manual for writers. This gives in more detail, more examples, but for most cases, this is the best place to start. So we're citing a book. For the biblio stands for bibliography, note stands for footnote. So with the bibliography, it's last name, comma, first, and initial. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this piece by piece. So last name is Ellis, comma, first name, Joseph. Okay, and he does give his middle initial, so you want to include that. So that's J, Joseph J. Ellis. Okay. All right, so what else do we need? So we need to have the book, and we need to put that in italics. So the book is Founding Brothers. I'm going to go ahead and put this in italics after I finish the rest of the citation. So period, and then the city publisher. Okay, so the city is New York. Colon, publisher is Vintage Books. Okay, let's see, what else do I need? And this information is found on the inside of the book. And the year that it was published, let me double check that. And this book was published in 2000. Okay, so let's see. Year published, comma, 2000. Period. Okay. Now, don't forget, got to go back and italicize the title. Okay. So Ellis, Joseph J., Founding Brothers, city it was published, name of the publisher, comma, year that it was published. That's what goes in the bibliography. Now we're ready to add in the footnote. So if I go back up to the footnote, the two are very similar. However, you'll notice one difference is the footnote, it's first name, middle initial, then last, comma, book, still in italics. So let's go ahead and let's add that first part. So this would be Joseph J. Ellis, comma, Founding Brothers. Okay, so what else do we need to add? Okay, then we're going to put in parentheses, city publisher, city published, publisher, year published, and you need to add the page numbers. Okay, you need to add the page numbers. So, in parentheses, so this would be New York, and then we said vintage books. Okay, what else do we need? So parentheses are over, comma, and then page numbers, comma, and then this was on page 27. So, okay, the reason for having both the footnote and the bibliography is if someone's looking at your work, they can quickly go to your bibliography to get a sense of all the source material that you used to write your research paper. What this footnote specifically says is that for this idea here, someone reads that and they say, do I really believe that this is how the American public reacted? Well, what they would be able to do is see where you got that information and very quickly look it up to see that you're basing your work off of this other guy that was published, Joseph Ellis. So this is like the general idea, like, yes, I used this book throughout and it goes in alphabetical order. This is saying this is where I got this specific idea from. Okay, now let's say we have another book that we're using, and we're going to name this one after myself. So there's Sean P. The name of my book is The Duel. This was published in Baltimore, and great books. Oops, great books. And this is from 2000, let's say 2015. Okay, so don't forget, got to go back and italicize. And there we go. Notice how it's in alphabetical order. Now let's say that the title was longer, right? So the famous duel between Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr. So you notice that because of the length of the book, it's pushed the full text onto the next line. For Chicago Travian, something that we need to do is to create what we call hanging indentations. And so what you're going to do is you're going to take your cursor, you're going to go to each line after the first. So here where it says great books, hit enter once and then tab. And what that does is it creates an indentation, and you should do that for every line after, so that the only thing that's sticking out that's all the way to the left margin is the first author's last name. Okay, so that it helps with reading, because then it makes it easy and clear to see when one source ends and one begins. So it's just a convention that's been around. So that's called a hanging indentation. Make sure you have that for all of your sources. Okay, so now I got my bibliography. I got two sources. I got one footnote here for this idea. All right, so let's say, make sure, one other thing I want to note is that the footnote should come in after the punctuation of the sentence. Okay, don't put spaces, don't put it inside the period or anything like that. So I'm going to write another sentence here, and let's just say it is unknown what exactly happened during the duel. fix that. And let's say I got this idea from ferries, so I'll go ahead and insert footnote. So again, insert, drop down, footnote. It automatically will create number 2 for me. And so for here, same kind of thing. I'm going to do Sean, ferries, the duel. I'll give it the shorter one. So we said Baltimore, great books. And this was page, I'm going to make this up, 450. Okay. All right. And don't forget, it looks like I forgot, don't forget to italicize the book. Oops, wrong thing. Italicize the book titles. Okay. All right. So now I got 2 footnotes. Right. Now let's say this idea from me, let's say that Ellis also says the same thing, which he actually does on page 28. So what I would be able to do is to corroborate. So this is an idea that we've talked about. I can go ahead and insert another footnote. Okay, and that'll create number 3. And this is also from Joseph Ellis. Okay, so the easiest thing to do to start is to just copy and paste and make sure you update the page number. So this was from page 8. Okay, so copy and pasting is great if you remember how to get all the information accurate. Now, there's also one other thing to note is that there's a shorthand for Chicago that after you've given the full footnote, every other time you cite that source, that author, you can abbreviate it. What you can actually do is get rid of the first name and initial, so it's just Ellis, and you can get rid of the publisher and the book. So it's just Ellis, here's the book, and here's the page number. Okay, so it allows you to do that just as kind of a shorthand to make it a little bit easier. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is show you another kind of trick that we have with Chicago Turabian. So let's say I'm giving another idea here. This is also from Ellis on page 28. And that is this idea that after the duel, some American newspapers were comparing Burr to Benedict Arnold. You might remember him from U.S. history, the guy that switched sides during the Revolution and left the American side to join the British. Okay, so that's another idea from Ellis. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is cite it to give him credit. So drop down menu from insert, footnote. Now we have footnote number 4. There shouldn't be a space here. Okay, good. Footnote number 4. And this is Ellis again. But history with Chicago Turabian gives you another shorthand, and that is Ibid, or Ibid. And basically what this says is see the source above. Okay, so it's saying I'm citing the same source. This is still from Ellis and Founding Brothers, 28, but you can see the source above. But you still need to give a page number in case the page number is different. This is also from page 28, so we're just going to go ahead and note that. Okay, so these are the general rules for citing using Chicago Turabian. Feel free to watch this video or email me or talk to me in class if you have any questions. Remember, you need both a bibliography and footnotes throughout. Anytime you're citing a source for information or evidence, you need to give the author credit, and you need to let your reader know where they can find where that information came from. Okay, so that's kind of the idea behind it. So in this example, I used a book, but if you'll note that on these cheat sheets, it says book, chapter and anthology, magazine, newspaper, journal, website, online database. This other source I give you takes the same kind of idea, but it gives you examples. Okay, so that can also be helpful too. So you get kind of the template, use the template to create yours, and then you can compare yours to the examples to make sure everything looks right. And again, I'll reiterate the fact that you can use the manual for writers, which will give you more in-depth information, more examples, in case you have a source and you're not sure exactly what to do with it. Okay. It also gives you a little bit of background on why Chicago became the conventional one used for history. Okay. All right. So thanks again for watching the video, and let me know if you have any questions.